Okay, well, welcome to the GridironStuds Show. We're going to do it a little bit differently today. I'm Emil Calomino. I'm usually the Robin on this show, and I don't mean Robin like Howard Stern and Robin. I mean Robin and Batman. Okay,
Wouldn't
so
that be a sight?
yes. So I'm usually Robin, but today we're going to do the show a little different because the person who started the show we're going to interview. So some of you might know Chad Wilson well, some of you might not. You'll learn something hopefully today.
Hey,
We're
you
going to
see
find
what
out.
it is too, right?
They can see the U, and he's very proud. His boys basketball team made the NCAA Final Four. The girls almost made the Final Four. So who would think my University of Miami is a basketball school? But I digress. First of all,
At this point, it is what it is, my
it is
friend.
what it is, right? For all you people out there that are new to the show, you can find the show on Facebook under Gridiron Studs. If you're listening on any of the major platforms, which I assume that's how you're getting the show, whether it's Apple Play, Spotify, Anchor, you hit the subscribe button. We'd appreciate that if you like what you're hearing. We do a lot of shows. We try to come every week. We miss a few during the off season, but we're here for the main parts of the off season. Something happens big, we're here. So you do that, and we'd appreciate it. You can find Chad, the purveyor of the show, under Gridiron Studs on basically every
You're
social
using
media
big
platform.
words here, purveyor, like Google that.
Yeah. You can find him on TikTok with the ones they were trying to ban, but they won't. Okay, so you can still find him on TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, all those great things. You can find Chad. He puts out good videos. He has a YouTube channel, does a lot of coaching, and we're gonna get to that. So that's it for that part of the show. That's the bookkeeping, as I like to call it. I want to get into the main part of the show today, which is to interview my co-host and friend for you folks out there, and maybe you learn a little bit about Chad. So we met like it's over 20 years now. So
Hard to
you have an
believe.
interesting background. I find it interesting, and I think the listeners will. You were not,
Hopefully
you
they'll
did
like
not
it.
grow up. When I say grow up, baby to say 5 or 6 years old, you did not grow up in the United States. So explain that to me and the
It's
listeners.
funny that you start that off. You started off with that because I got back to thinking about it this week when I watched that documentary that came out on Prime Video about Reggie Jackson. Uh,
Right.
my parents split up when I was 2 years old. I was born in New York City and born in Brooklyn to be exact. And then spent my first 2 years there. But you don't remember anything in your first
No,
2 years. You have very few memories. I do
you
have
do.
some.
You're a savant. You're like the Rain Man. If you remember like
Yes,
0 to 2,
something's wrong with
okay.
you.
Yes.
But yeah, I have some memories, but they're very sketchy. So my first memories are when I was in Trinidad, because that's where I went after my parents split up. My mother sent me down to Trinidad to live with my grandmother. My mother's Trinidadian. My grandmother was down there. She sent me down there to live in Trinidad. And it was a really great thing to have happen in my life, to obviously get the, undying attention of both my grandmother and my step grandfather at the time. And my grandmother, a heavily religious person, Seventh-day Adventist, to give me that start off in my life with that as a background, has been an anchor for an entire part of my life. So it has probably led me to some really good decisions along the way. But I stayed there till I was 5, and then I came back in the country in the summer of 1977. So as I was watching this Reggie Jackson documentary, you know what he did in 77. He
Sure.
hit the 3 home runs to end the World Series for the Yankees. So you're in New York City, you come back in. I don't know anything about baseball coming back into the country. It was not a part of my life.
Well, wait. What was the first sport you got introduced to? Just
Soccer.
any soccer.
No, soccer for sure. You're down in Trinidad, it's soccer or cricket. I took a liking to soccer, and at the time Brazil was it. So was Pele. So Pele is the first sports idol that I had. That's what I was watching when I was down there in Trinidad. And during the time that I was there, they won a World Cup, and it was all about Pele. And so you couldn't get away from
So
it.
as a little kid, like when I say little, 7, 8 years old, you played a lot of soccer.
Yeah, I'm out in the yard with the soccer ball, imagining myself being Pele.
Okay.
So that's the first sport that I took to, and consequently, it's the first organized sport that I played. But I come back into the country at that time. I come into New York
So
City.
you were how old in 1977?
Five,
5. So you came
five. So
back.
you guys can
So you were
easily
in
imagine.
Trinidad for like 3 years. give or take.
Yeah, just about.
You came back and you went back to Brooklyn.
Yeah, come back to Brooklyn, and it's, you know, the Yankees are on this run and it's Reggie Jackson. So, man, I had no choice. If I'm going to fall in love with baseball, which I did, how could I not at that time, to fall in love with Reggie Jackson? So that was my second sports idol. And, you know, to this day, he's the greatest sports idol I've had in my lifetime.
Okay.
Some people think it's Eric Dickerson, but it's Reggie Jackson.
You know, you and I have interesting conversations, and I'm going to go all over the place here. So, you know, tying back to
feel free.
Yes, you know, we don't you know, you and I don't stay away from the sensitive issues because we know each other a long time. So you've often said this to me when you were in Trinidad. It was good for you in a lot of ways.
Yes.
And I think part of it was, if I'm saying, and you tell me where I'm wrong here, that it was good because everybody in power was black. So you got to see.
Well, basically, you know, the prime minister at the time was black, police officers were black, store owners black or Indian. So I didn't grow up with that as a thought, like, oh, well, you can't be this, or you won't achieve this because of your skin color. It just wasn't a thought. Like, if I wanted to be that, I could be. It was never looked at as, okay, that's a white man's position, or only a white man is allowed to do it. It wasn't a part of my early life, so I didn't grow up with that.
Fair enough. And I noticed that. I've been to the Caribbean before. I just got back from earlier this month in the Bahamas, and I've always noticed that. Besides the fact that people are very jovial. I mean, but then again, if you're on an island, who wouldn't?
Life's easy. You know, life's easy and good. They don't feel pressed about much. You know, they're not rich by any means, but
they're happy.
They don't need to be. And there's something to be said for that.
There is something to be said for that. And I noticed that in the Bahamas, that's one thing I noticed. They had a picture of all the current government leaders. And it made me think of you when we had that conversation a long time ago. And I said, well, I could see how that would be important in your formative years. Like it would be actually something that would be a good thing.
Yeah, and it wasn't even a thought though, Angel. We're just living. Right. This is what.
But that's my point. That's why it was a good thing, because it wasn't a thought. Right. In other words, it wasn't something I had. It just.
Yeah, I was never confronted with any of that stuff until I came back into the United States.
Right. Okay, so then you're there. You come back to Brooklyn. It's 1977. You take a liking to baseball because you're enamored with Reggie Jackson.
I took a liking to baseball because I came back in the summer, and that was the sport at the time. You know, so you know, sports was a part of, you know, my early life, soccer and cricket to a certain degree. So you come back looking for sports, and you're there in the summer, and the Yankees happen to be doing well, and they're chasing a pennant. So, okay, what's this baseball thing? It kind of looks like cricket. That's what's on TV, and the local team is doing well. And everywhere you go in New York City, you're confronted with Yankees baseball. No one's talking about this in 1977.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I took a liking to that and took a liking to the main character.
Now, when did you first, or if you remember, get introduced to football?
My first memories really of football might have been 78, 79. And for whatever reason, it was the Los Angeles Rams. I can chalk it up to this if I'm doing a little self-psychology, if there's such a thing, is that the first sport team I ever liked was Brazil. And their colors were blue and gold.
Yes.
And so I'm watching football. Who has those colors? It's the Los Angeles Rams. And Amo, let's be honest, they had the baddest uniforms in football.
The old Rams uniforms that I like to say, after my own heart, with the Dodger blue and the USC gold pants, the yellow gold pants, were phenomenal threads until they went now and put in some pale blue with like a yellow banana color and plastic numbers.
Well, they did that nonsense when we were full on adults.
Yeah, I don't know what they did, but getting back to, they have very nice uniforms. I like the old Rams.
It pops on television.
It really does.
And like, you know,
as a Cowboy fan, my favorite game would be when they played the Rams, because I thought the two uniforms looked so cool together on the television set.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, at that young stage, I'm not all into the strategy per
se. No, you're liking the helmets, and
it's just guys crashing into each other, and these colors really stand out on the screen. So I was attracted to the Rams. And 78, 79, the Rams did really, really well.
Sure.
They go, that season they go to the Super Bowl. So yeah, those are my first memories. I don't really.
So now you're very young now. You're playing soccer. You're getting into baseball. You're 7, 8 years old. I'm assuming you start playing pickup football, like.
Yeah, when you're in New York City, man, there isn't the local youth football going around. It's just not really a big thing. The way my mom schedule worked, that wasn't really going to happen. There was no taking the subway to the football field. It wasn't that. I was a latchkey kid. I would come home from school, let myself into the apartment, and I'm there pretty much solo until my mom gets home 6 o'clock,
Yeah.
or whatever, and she wasn't turning me over to someone else to be at some park. That just not happening.
Yeah, so you lived at, like, we had more grass where I grew up, but we played football on the street too. So basically, you grew up playing in the, hey, go down to the Pontiac and run it out.
Yes,
Yes.
all my moves happened in the street, in between
Yes.
a Pontiac and a Buick. However, I could shake someone in between, those two, that narrow street. That's how I got it done. And there was a time where I would go home with my cousins, so I'm playing with my cousins in the street till my mom could come pick me up. So you're out in the road, and it's like 8 or 9 of us trying to play football in the street. So yeah.
So when did you first play or where and when did you first play organized, like any sort of organized football?
I didn't play an organized sport until we moved down to Florida. So everything was in the street. Stickball, we had something we call punch ball in New York City, where you throw like a racket ball and
Yeah.
you kick it with your hand. And of course, there was stickball. I did the football in the street. Soccer wasn't really a part of my life when I was in New York, but until we moved down to Florida in 1982, 83.
So you're at this point, you're 10 or 11. You were in South Florida, where basically.
Yes, South Florida.
So you started playing whatever it's called on there, Pop Warner or midget Pee Wee.
Well, and even that I didn't play football right away.
No.
And it's, for as much as I'm into football right now and all the training and everything else that I've done, and as much as I've played it and coached it, people might be surprised to realize it's the third sport for me. It's the third sport. Soccer was first, baseball was second, then football. So I came down here. My grandparents had now moved from Trinidad to South Florida, and my step grandfather encouraged me to play sports and do it organized now, because there's a lot of grass down here. There's soccer fields available, and go play for real. So I went and played soccer at age 11. That was the first sport.
Okay. So when was the first age where you actually said, okay, I'm on an organized football team?
Well, I'll tell you how that came to be. I was playing this soccer, not extremely popular amongst, your classmates or whatever. You still do the whole football stuff at recess and you think you're great. But I started going to middle school, and like around 7th grade, you take an interest in the females and stuff like that. And so these guys from the local Optimist Club, Pasadena Lakes, by the way, would show up on Fridays with their jerseys on. They were USC colors, by the way.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, Cardinal gold. And they'd show up, man. And on Fridays, good luck trying to get the attention of any female. It was all about those dudes. And
yeah.
All right, well, like, what do they got going on? Oh, it's football? I can play football. So I go sign up for football. I think
I like the honesty here. This is the same reason.
That's what drew me there. Otherwise,
the only reason men try to make any money. Okay, the only reason men try to make any money is so they can eventually get a nice female. That's it.
So I just otherwise I probably would have just kept on doing the pickup football thing, and that would have been it. I'd have been this soccer guy that's decent out on grass when there's no real tackling going on. So yeah, I go out for football, and I get handed all these pads, all this equipment. All right, I think it's cool. And then that's first day of pads, and we're hitting. I realized this kind of football is different than the football that I'd been playing. Like these guys.
But within short order, did you like it?
No. Off the bat, no. I mean, I enjoyed having the ball in my hand and, being faster than most. But when the hits started coming, I was like, whoa, this is different. I don't know if I like this. But, at that age and in that time, Your parents aren't out there. No one's there to coddle you. It's you and those group of guys, the coaches, and one parent.
Right.
There's one parent that I remember being there, and it was the quarterback's dad, who ended up being the quarterback at the University of Miami, Ryan Collins. We're very good friends to this day. Like, his dad was there kind of to make sure that the coaching staff doesn't do anything crazy with the kids. It kind of seemed like that was what his, his job.
He didn't quite trust these guys. Like he was like,
no. These guys would go, and you know what? Coaches had a lot of leeway in Little League back then.
yeah.
Other F you, they'd pull your face mask. Guys would get jerked up, and no one would go to jail, and they wouldn't be a scene. You just took it as discipline with another adult.
Now, see, you guys were already ahead of the curve, politically correct, calling it Little League. Up here, Little League is baseball. We called it midget football.
Yeah, we actually called it Optimus, to be honest. I'm just calling it Little League.
See, if you say that today up here, people look at you. If you're in a room with a bunch of people under the age of, say, 45, and you say, "Oh yeah, I used to play midget football," they'd be like,
you can't say midget anymore. That's a thing.
I just did.
Yeah, well,
3 times. I didn't mean.
Look at where we are. But
okay.
That's why
anyway,
I'm for football.
So you're playing football and baseball at this point, right?
Baseball came a year later. So I did the football, and some of the coaches that coached football also coached baseball.
Okay.
They liked my athleticism and said, "Come over and play baseball."
Okay. Because one thing anybody who listens to the show relatively consistently knows that you're a big baseball fan, like myself. And I know you would say you like. I mean, maybe I'm putting words in your mouth at this point, but I would say you like baseball even more than football, or at least close.
Oh, it's really, really close. No, it's definitely really, really close. It's a sport I followed more than football, that's for sure. But I obviously love both sports. But yeah, I didn't play baseball until a year later, and that was at the behest of coaches that coached football.
Okay, now I'm going to move this along a little bit, because obviously, you at some point took a liking to this, and you had to be good at it because, for the audience, most people, I'm assuming, that listen know this, but those who don't, Chad eventually ended up playing football at the University of Miami and starting and being very good at it. So at some point you said that something went off in your head and you said, "I'm pretty good at this." So when was that?
You just kept playing. So I got to the point of, and this is funny, I was small in my early years. So I played Optimus football in 10th grade. I was 120 pounds, 5'3", 120 pounds when I showed up to high school as a freshman. It doesn't say, go play high school football. So I played high school football, and I played Optimus football in 9th grade. 10th grade came around, and I played it there as well. Frankly, because I wasn't going to be able to I wasn't going to make the varsity football team at the size I was in 10th grade. And the Optimus Club was better football than the JV team we had at the school that I was going to. However, after that sophomore year, I decided to go out for football at the high school. We weren't very good. And I went out there and just kind of looked around and said, this isn't really it. The clinching moment for me was, we're doing spring football, we're doing our drills, we're running 40-yard dashes. And every day before practice, the coach would come up, we'd be on these little stands, like right off to the side, and he'd give like these announcements. And so he comes and he talks about, the 40-yard dashes that we yesterday. He starts reading off the top times, and he's reading off these times in AML, they're slow. About wide receivers, running backs, like skill positions, and the times aren't very good. And he goes, and the fastest time of the day, Chad Wilson, 4.52. And they started treating me like I was one of the Beatles. Wow. Whoa.
Well, first of all, at that age and back then, 4.5 was fast.
It's definitely a fast time. However, I had a buddy that played there that was faster than me, and he ended up leaving. And he ended up going to the school that Marco graduated from, but they were certainly not that.
Well, for context, I don't think Michael Irvin ran 4.5 when he's in his rookie year at the Cowboys.
Understandable. That was never his game. His game.
I know, and that's not a dig. I love Michael Irvin. My point is,
I heard all those other times, Emil, and they were nowhere close to mine. And then they treated me like I was Bob Beeman, Carl Lewis.
So now you became like, so this is your junior year, and I'm assuming
it would have been me going into my junior year. It was spring football.
Right. So it's the later 80s, mid to late 80s. So I'm assuming you had to be a running back because back then running the ball was a thing.
Yes, I thought I was going to be Eric Dickerson, whatever. You're not thinking about receiver. We didn't throw the ball at this school. That was not a thing that we did. It was a bare offense for all of you football schematic guys out there. So that means you throw 3 or 4 passes a game and they better work. Most likely your quarterback's 2 or 4 for 35 yards. You're not trying to be a receiver. You're blocking as a receiver.
Yeah, I mean, this is a lot of fullback dives, pull the ball out of the fullback, pitch.
There's 3 backs in the backfield. You're splitting carries with 2 other guys. That was the deal.
That was an old, a standard Southern offense in the 70s. I mean, a lot of the big time college programs ran a veer offense.
Yeah, that was true. And that's what was working. That's what Oklahoma and Nebraska ran. And that's what they were kicking people's rear ends with. We hadn't quite come around to the time of Miami dominating. Yes, they'd won a national championship by then, but they hadn't really hit that real gusto. So there was no.
So your junior year, you're still in South Florida?
No, here's what happened. I kind of went out of Cooper City High School here in South Florida. So I knew right then and there during those spring practices, I wasn't going to stay there. If I stayed in South Florida, I was going to go to another school, maybe St. Thomas, maybe Miami Lakes with Ryan. I wasn't staying there, but my father had just moved out of Los Angeles into the Valley, into a place called Moreno Valley. And it was really, really nice out there. So I go out there every summer and he moved into this place. And I was like, man, you know what? I'd kind of like to, live here. I don't have my act together in South Florida. I really don't want to go to that school. So since I'm leaving that school, and I'm going to be changing anyway, it's probably a good time for me to go live with my dad. And long story short, that ended up happening.
So wait, you're 15 or 16 years old. You already got more mileage than Stormy Daniels.
Yeah, but
I mean, you're like
a Stormy Daniels comparison, sure.
You're like all over the world at this point.
Basically, born in New York, Trinidad.
Okay,
back to New York.
You're a world traveler. So your junior year, you're out in LA.
Yes.
So what high school do you go to?
I go to a place called Canyon Springs High School. Brand new school. Might have been 2 years old at the time that I show up there. But they have a tremendous amount of talent. So I come in there from South Florida. Yes, I've got speed. I can play football. But I go out there and I get injured early on. I have an ankle, then I have a groin, and I'm not really impressing in the early going. So I start off the junior year on JV because they were just stacked. I wasn't going to jump over someone if I wasn't really practicing. So here I am as a junior playing JV football. So there's a stigma attached to that I just didn't really want to roll with. So that's how I started off. Of course, I'm not happy with that. I'm an ambitious guy. I go crazy on JV, returning punts, playing defense, playing running back, doing everything. And then they bring me up towards the end of the year to play varsity football.
So I'm assuming, since I know where you end up here, and it's part of the story, your senior year, somehow you become the starting running back.
I worked my ass off. And so I know some of the audience here are people that listen to me for all of the, recruiting advice and things of that nature. And when I talk like that and telling them these things that they need to do, I actually lived it. And, I realize this is an interview of me, so not to be sounding boastful, but I was not happy with the position that I was in, and I really wanted to play college football. My biggest goal athletically was not to play in the NFL. That's just something that, came around later. It was to play big-time college football. That's what I wanted to do. I saw it on TV. It looked exciting, looked like something I wanted to do. So I wanted to do that, and I had to figure out a way to do it. So I really spent the offseason lifting, running, et cetera, et cetera. And when I came back my senior year, I just wasn't going to be denied.
Well, now I don't want any Al Bundy 4 touchdowns at Polk High School stories, but so what kind of senior year did you have? Give me some idea numbers wise.
2 kickoff returns for touchdowns, and that was early in the year because they would stop kicking the ball to me. I think I had 10 rushing touchdowns. 6 or 7 of them were 60+ yard runs. 3 interceptions.
So you had 1,000 yards rushing easy.
No, I actually split time with a friend of mine. So we split time. I was full time on defense. So I had 3 interceptions. 1 was an 85-yard touchdown. I had an 85-yard fumble return. I was nothing but big plays. Now, was I I narrowly edged out being the best player on the team, but that honor went to a guy who was, he and his brother played there. They were very well known there. Guy by the name of Eric Zomwalt. He was the best player on the team, but I was a close second that year.
So for my homer mind, you were a combination of Tony Pollard and Trayvon Diggs.
I was doing it all, man.
You were doing it all.
I was trying to make up for all the lost time in 1 year, and shoot, I was happy that I was given the opportunity to do that. So I got it done that year, that's for sure.
So now you have a good senior year, and it's time to go to college. How did that work out? I mean, eventually we know where you ended up, but how did that work out?
Not really knowing anything about the whole recruiting process. It's just, I just want to go to college. I really want to be recruited by UCLA because that's, a school that I really liked growing up. Again, blue and gold, I guess.
Sure.
So I really liked UCLA growing up. I'm actually now out in Los Angeles. They're recruiting my cousin who went to Bishop Amat. By the way, it's the same school that Eric Bieniemy went to. So my cousin went to that school. It was a big time school in Southern California football wise, and he's getting recruited by them. But without a junior year, I was never on their radar or a thought of being anything like that until, my senior year. So I didn't really get recruited by UCLA, USC. Matter of fact, the only Pac-10 team, which is what they were at the time, that recruited me was Cal. Everybody else was Western Athletic Conference, the WAC conference in the Big West. And then, Northwestern recruited me, and a couple of other schools.
How did Cal make you an official offer?
Cal did. And here's how I screwed that up. Again, not understanding the recruiting process. You get 5 visits. I set up 5 visits. I'm going to take 5 visits. Cal was my 3rd visit. After finishing that visit with Cal was trying to get me to commit. And I'm like, well, I've got 5 trips. I'm going to take my 5 trips and then make a decision. That just seems like a sound thing to do. And they kept telling me, hey, we'd like you to commit. And then finally they just said, hey, listen, if you're not going to commit, there's a chance this scholarship's going to go to someone else. And lo and behold, it did. By the time I'd taken that 4th visit, they gave my scholarship, and I always remember the name of the guy that they gave it to. Because ultimately, after taking all those trips, Cal is where I wanted to go. But I wanted to make sure that I did all the trips, trying to make a decision here. They gave it to a guy named Artis Houston out of Cincinnati, out of Ohio. And that guy.
That's where this Christianity thing, and you didn't want to lie, got in the way. Okay. You didn't realize that what you're supposed to say is, sure, I'll commit.
Listen, had someone broken it down to me, I would have committed. If it was this day and age, yeah, I'm coming. I'm coming, coach. Find a way to take those 2 other trips, because the one after Cal was to UNLV. So, that was definitely the trip I had the most.
Wow, you want to talk about a 180 academically. Holy cow.
Yeah, I won't even talk about that trip. Just enough to say, I realize I can't go to school here.
Yes.
I'll get my degree. I probably won't be a good football player. This is not good for me. I came from Florida to California to get my act together. This is going to send me way back. Remember the game Chutes and Ladders for our older audience? Yeah, I went right down the chute.
And now you know why I make jokes about the Raiders every year.
Yeah. No, not the place for me to go.
Not the place.
Thanks for the 3 days. It was great. I can't come to school here, coach. By the way, the coach that was recruiting me at UNLV was Chuck Pagano.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, Chuck Pagano, who ended up coaching, was the head coach for my son when he got drafted. So,
for anybody coming in here in the audience, in case you picked up in the middle, it's the GridironStuds Show, and this was a show we're doing today. I'm Emil Calomino. We're interviewing my co-host and the guy who started this show, this podcast, Chad Wilson, and we're in the middle of his life story. I'm getting you up to when he actually played some real football, and we're close. So you have to pick a school.
Yeah.
Cal's out. Where do you go?
Well, I had Emil, which is crazy, committed to San Diego State during my visit. Somehow, San Diego State got me to commit the way Cal didn't. So, Al Louisville at the time.
Well, that's not a bad thing. San Diego State had a nice program, so.
San Diego State the campus is beautiful. San Diego is beautiful. Went down into Mexico. That was fun for me. I had a really good host, a guy by the name of Robert Griffith, who ended up playing several years in the pros for the Minnesota Vikings. Really great. And this seemed like a good thing. And I committed for an hour. And then I called my dad, who didn't go on the trip. My dad didn't go on any of these trips. And Emil, if someone could come through the phone, my dad would have, and smacked me in the face and choked me and said, "What are you doing?" It's loud. It wasn't speakerphone, but damn it, everyone could hear through that.
Might as well have been the speakerphone. So what was Pop's problem with
Pop's
San Diego
problem
State?
was you're not making a decision on a trip where the emotions are running high. That's not how we're doing this. And secretly, he didn't really like San Diego State because my cousin went there and they bounced my cousin around. My cousin came there as a defensive player. They moved him to offense. Then they moved him back to defense and they moved him back to offense. And he felt like they were going to take me. He felt like I was a defensive player. He felt like I was a DB. And he thought because they really just cared about offense at San Diego State that they would take me and move me to offense. And that was not ideal.
So he had a little bit of a built-in bias against them.
Yes. So I got home and I was like, well, why did you even let me take the trip if that's how you felt? Like I wasted time there, like why would you even let me see San Diego? You have been down there to go to my cousin's games. I'm gonna like San Diego.
Yeah.
Right. I'm gonna like it. I didn't even talk about the girls that were there. So I had I want to go here. And we had our little back and forth. Eventually he won out. My father loved the Raiders. He was a Raiders fan. So the fact that Willie Brown, Hall of Fame defensive back Willie Brown, was at Long Beach State really made them the one that he wanted me to go to. So everything was pushing in that direction. And then George Allen was the coach. Everyone's familiar with George Allen.
Well, we're assuming everyone's familiar. Our younger audience.
No. At that time.
Oh, yeah. Because
anyone from my dad's era is familiar with who he
is.
George
Allen, a great coach.
Yeah. Hall of Fame type. And he'd done some turnaround. So my dad felt like these are guys that have come from the NFL. If the NFL is something you want to do, they would be able to guide me in that direction. And man, at the end of the day, that's where I ended up. And that's a story in and of itself.
So that's a whole other show. I know some of this, but Long Beach State, suffice to say, is a baseball school.
Yes, and a basketball school at the time.
And a basketball school, but
a football school.
Right. The football program was short on funds, not well funded. Basically, you played a couple big schools as you were the tackling dummies, right? That's how that worked.
At home, we played in Veterans Stadium, a one-sided stadium that seats 12,500. You could catch portions of the game at the stoplight across the way.
Yeah.
And it just was not big time.
Oh, no, I've been in Long Beach because there's a convention center there. So in the course of my life, I've had the
Veterans Stadium.
It's a blue collar town. It's a longshoreman. The port is there. It's a blue collar
beautiful portions, but you're correct about that. And yes, we had third dibs on the field. By the way, Poly and Long Beach Poly got first decisions as to when they wanted that field, then Long Beach City College, and then Long Beach State. So
the high school, the junior college, both took precedent
over Long Beach State because Poly's a big deal, and still, I know. Yeah, in Long Beach, and so we weren't getting that field before then, and we wouldn't sell that thing out. Now, our first year with George Allen, when he was alive, he did end up passing away after that first season. We managed to get a winning season. We won the last game against UNLV. And ended up 6-5, so we had some momentum, but then he passed away.
And then I'm taking your sophomore season, team-wise, was a disaster.
Sophomore season, they gave the job to Willie Brown, and I loved Willie as my position coach. He just was not ready to be a head coach. Actually, there was a guy there on staff that should have been the head coach. He was a former head coach at UNLV. His name was Harvey Hyde. Should have gotten that job. He didn't. They went with the big name of Willie Brown, and it ended up being a mistake. He just was not ready to be that. And I actually tried to transfer. And I tried to go to Cal. I kind of talked to San Diego State.
You mean between freshman, sophomore year?
Well, George Allen passed away around Christmas time, New Year's, after that first season. And upon hearing that they were hiring Willie, again, really loved Willie, but I just knew this was not going to go well. And I tried to transfer. And they got wind of it, and they were all over me and made these promises that I was going to play both ways and do all of this stuff. And I was going to be the Gordy Lockbaum, again, a reference for older people. but it never materialized. When I came in, I had a few practices on offense, and then they quickly just got
Gordy Lockbaum, there's a name.
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah. There. So you get to the end of the sophomore year and you say to yourself, I got to get out of here. I'm assuming.
Yeah, I didn't even get to the end. What ended up happening is we came back and played. We played Miami my sophomore year. I come home and 20-something fans in the stands. Game didn't go well. It was 35-0 really, really quickly. Obviously motivated by the fact that I'm back home playing in front of my family and friends. I played really, really well, but we got destroyed. We got wrecked. We did a lot of stupid things. It like really highlighted how stupid we were. Talent-wise, we couldn't match up, but we just looked so bad. Come back home. We did a couple more silly things. Specifically, Miami kept their linebackers on the field against us, and we had a 4 wide receiver offense. They kept their linebackers on the field, didn't play nickel, and they thought, oh, that's great. They don't even sub guys out. We'll do the same. I said, Coach, we don't have 2 linebackers on the outside that run 4-4 like they're
Yeah.
Why would we do that? Lo and behold, we go and play a school name called Pacific, who at the time had a run and shoot record-breaking offense.
Yeah.
We go out there and we leave our linebackers out there, and it was abusive. And not
you know
only
who I think, who I think was a Pacific grad? Pete Carroll.
He might have been.
I think Pete Carroll went to Pacific.
He might have been, and even if we check, he may have even been around that staff at the time. But nevertheless, Emil, not only did we get our ass beat, I play corner. So I don't see any action that game because they're just working these linebackers on the inside. They're running up points, and I'm running up and down the
field. Yeah, they're just, I mean, that's pitch and catch.
So I'm totally frustrated, and I'm like, I'm out of here. So I start contacting schools, Florida State being the main one, because I'm figuring I might have to walk on, and I can afford Florida State. I can do the whole, grants, aid, everything, and I can get into Florida State. Miami's out of the question. It's very expensive. I'm not going to Florida, not doing that. And so
wait, why do you say you're not going to Florida?
Man, listen, just growing up, being down in South Florida, you hate the Gators. Like that's it. If you like Miami at all, you hate the Gators. You just don't see yourself there. Just don't identify with that. And plus, I liked defensive backs. Florida State just had there. They had Terrell Buckley at the time. That's where I want to go.
So help me here now? Okay, so you're playing on this really bad team.
Yes.
So how do you get to Miami? Like, what's obviously you ended up at Miami. And you said you needed to get a scholarship. How do you get a scholarship offer for Miami?
Well, look, to fast forward to that part, I get in contact with Florida State, and I'm talking back and forth with them, and they're talking about I'm going to have to walk on. I actually talked to Mickey Andrews, their longtime defensive coordinator, sent them a highlight video. And man, that's a whole show telling you how you put a highlight video together back in those days. So that's going well, and I go and ask for my release out of my scholarship. And I go to Willie Brown and I say, listen, I would like to transfer. I want to release out of my scholarship. He was not happy about it, but I wasn't backing down. It wasn't like, at the beginning of the year where they talked me out of it. You already lied to me once. You're not getting me. So I wouldn't back down. He said, well, tell me what schools you want to go to. I said, Florida State. He said, okay, cool. This was early in the day. I go to practice that day, and I line up, and we had a really good wide receiver that ended up playing several years for the Chargers, a guy by the name of Mark Say. Sends Mark Say deep, and he catches a bomb on me for a touchdown. And the whole team is doing this. Whoa, they're doing the whole tomahawk chop. So apparently, without me being around, he told the whole team I was trying to leave and go to Florida State. So I became this enemy. And Emil, like the next 5 plays in a row, they ran deep on me. And they did not catch another pass. I broke up every pass. And like on the last one, I got up. After realizing what's going on, I got up and said, that's why I'm leaving. That's why I'm leaving. Like I'm above all this. Super arrogant. Got up, took my helmet off like I'm already at mine and said, that's why I'm leaving. I didn't start another game that year.
That was the end of that.
No, I didn't start that week. And then the next week came around. I think it was the Florida State Miami game. And we didn't have a game that week. I didn't go to practice on that Saturday. I stayed in my room and watched Florida State play Miami. And I mean, they didn't kick me off the team, but I wasn't going to go anywhere starting. So I didn't even go to the last game of the year. And it's funny, my roommate and I, we were in the same predicament. We didn't even watch the game. You couldn't watch the game on TV. The game was on radio, and we were like, man, I wonder how the game is going. Emil, I swear to you, as soon as we turned the radio on, it was New Mexico State, a team we were supposed to beat. We turned it on just in time to hear New Mexico State score score on the final play of the game and win. And we're like, yeah, that's about right. Turn it off.
Yep.
So he had refused to give me my release. One day they call me down after the season's over. He calls me down and tells me he's going to give me my release. Like, okay, cool. Appreciate that. One day later, they announced that they cut the football program.
Oh.
So basically what he was doing was trying to get into my good graces because maybe some of these players here can help get those guys jobs when we fettered out to other places. I realized that that's what he did. But if you're going to cut a football program, it's not a spur. They decided at some point long ago to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So they cut the football program. And now, Emil, it's funny we have a transfer portal now. All the guys that played early, and honestly, I was the only freshman that played when I came in. And then the next year, the only really young guy that was doing something like you could like really say was going to be good was Terrell Davis. So Terrell Davis and I were the ones that were the most highly recruited guys. And then we had some guys that went on to do some really good things, but we were the most highly recruited. I was getting recruited by a ton of other schools in the country. Like this was really great. Like I was a big time recruit.
Right.
It's Miami. Like Miami's not on me. And I really want to come back home. So I picked up the phone. I called Ryan Collins, who was a freshman at Miami. I said, hey man, they cut our football program. Everyone's here recruiting me, but I'd like to come to Miami. And he was like, okay, let me go talk to the coach. So he went and talked to Randy Shannon, who eventually became a head coach at Miami. The only thing they did, Emil, was pull out the tape of the game when we played them. Thank God I didn't just go in the tank. They looked at that, saw me, said, we'll give you a scholarship. And I was like,
wow. So you must have played really well that day, because to be honest with you, I mean,
would stand out on that team in that game on that day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, I looked like I could play there. And so they scholarshiped me. But now I'd set up all these trips. One of them was to Hawaii, a place I'd never been, still haven't been. LSU, Houston, all these places. And then I got a call one day and said, hey, school is going to start at the University of Miami. If you want this scholarship, you better get yourself on a plane and come down here and get it. So I canceled all those trips immediately, hopped on the plane, came down, signed a scholarship. I'm a Miami Hurricane.
And I mean, obviously, you know, I've talked.
Yeah, I go from the 116th team in Division I football to the #1 team that just won a national championship.
I want to ask you some fun questions here before I do, you know, because we're pushing up. You know, we can try to keep this around an hour.
I could talk all night.
But yeah, I know. Well, no, it's fascinating. And to be honest with you, there may be a time when I want to pick up more of this, because I think there's some other things I'd like to unpack after your college career.
Sure.
But you had a really good career at Miami. I know you were all Big East. You were on that 94 team that year that lost to Nebraska. A lot of people up my way hate you guys even more for that, because that was the year Penn State and Nebraska both went undefeated, and Nebraska got both titles. They didn't even split them.
Man, it was the only time I was a Penn State fan. I really wanted them to, you know, actually, no. We needed Oregon to win. And if we beat Nebraska, then we would.
Yes, if you Oregon beat Penn State and you beat Nebraska, you would have been national champs.
Yeah, but Kajana Carter.
Kajana Carter. So you already touched on I was going to ask you your favorite sport you like after soccer, but you've obviously told me, I mean, it seems like baseball was the early one, at least.
Yes.
Who is, now, this is not football, this is anything, your favorite athlete all time?
Reggie Jackson.
More than Eric Dickerson.
More than Eric Dickerson. Yeah, I'm Reggie. I'm a Yankee fan over everything.
Huh. I like that. That's interesting.
Yeah,
now,
over Miami Hurricanes, over everything. I mean,
here's one I want to ask you, and this ties into, who is the best wide receiver that you personally, you didn't have to cover him, but you played in a game who is the best wide receiver you ever played against? And I'll even let you include guys on your own team that you practiced against. So it doesn't even have to be an opponent.
Well, listen, the three guys that were at the University of Miami when I first got there were tremendous performers in college football. They didn't go crazy at the NFL level, but those were as three good guys you can go up against on a day-to-day basis as possible. You had Horace Copeland, who was a 6'3", 200-pounder, who didn't ever go to track practice, but was the Big East long jump champion and ran a 10-400 meters and could do it back without bending his knees. You had Kevin Williams, who was a 4'2", 40 guy, highly compact.
Played for the Cowboys. Good player.
Yeah, extremely quick, one of the best return men in college football, and someone really difficult to cover. And then the best route runner and technician of all of them was Lamar Thomas, who racked up the most yards and catches out of the three of those guys. But I
have a feeling you see these guys regularly, and I appreciate you getting them all in there. But this isn't the Golden Corral, and we're not doing the buffet.
No, those guys were great. But the best guy I faced was Marvin Harrison. Faced him at Syracuse. Faced him in a preseason game against the Colts. Probably the best receiver I went up against.
Fast?
Sneaky fast. Really crazily good out of his breaks. He was just a really solid,
really good technician, right? He ran good routes.
He did. I ended up getting a pick in the game against Syracuse, but I definitely studied my rear end off. I also went against Antonio Freeman. He was definitely a very good. Florida State had a couple of good wide receivers, but Marvin Harrison was that guy.
Okay, I have two more fun questions for you. And then what I think we're going to do is, because we'll be up against an hour, we're going to pick this up sometime in the future because I want to cover for the audience, and it's probably another solid hour, some of the stuff from after you graduated from Miami till now, because I think they'll find that interesting. But I have two more fun questions for you. Okay, who is the best football player, period, that you ever played with?
Warren Sapp. And that's a tough one. But I take Sapp over Ray Lewis because at the time we played together, Warren Sapp was a better football player than Ray Lewis. Ray was coming into his own. Ray's younger than me.
So Ray actually in the pros really flourished.
He leveled up. Yeah,
he took a huge leap.
Yeah, he definitely leveled up. And even if we were just saying who ended up being the best football player out of those two, that's a toss them up. But I'd have to say Warren Sapp. I also tell people that's the best athlete I'd ever been around, which seemed crazy to people because he was a heavy guy with a stomach, but he could rock back dunk on.
He was very quick. I mean, for people who were younger that don't remember his career, I mean, I remember him vividly throughout his whole career, but at Miami and then with Tampa Bay, I mean, he was extremely fast for a guy his size.
Yeah, he would run sprints sometimes with the running backs at whatever, between 280, 300 pounds. Like I said, could rock back on his dunks. Very good athlete. It didn't matter what you had him do, badminton, tennis, anything sporting wise, he'd seem to be able to pick it up. And the thing that I think a lot of people wouldn't realize, just because of his aura and some of the things that Sapp has done since, off the field, etc. He was a highly intelligent football player. He's the kind of person that digs in and studies things. And on top of having all those athletic skills, he could really dissect what a lineman was trying to do to him and figure out the play in a nanosecond. Yeah. That's how he made a lot of plays. It was the intelligence, really.
And for some of our audience in the pre-podcasting days, probably it's going on 8 or 10 years ago when Chad and I used to do the show live, more like a radio show. We actually had Warren Sapp on for an entire season, the entire football season. We had him on every Tuesday, and he's certainly an interesting guy.
Yeah, and it didn't matter. You can bring up any topic, and he knows something. He knows enough to talk about it.
And he's not scared to geek. He's certainly not going to wilt. He'll give you his opinion.
No, he's not backing down off of something that he believes. Absolutely not.
No. And then finally, before we wrap up this part of this interview, this show today, who is the meanest guy? Now think this through. The meanest guy you ever played with. I mean, just nasty.
Meanest guy I ever played with.
And if you want to include, listen, if you have enough experience playing against somebody and you say, listen, they were nastier than anybody I ever played with, you can give me that too. But it had to be in a game you played in.
That's well, I played against him at high school when I was at Canyon Springs, and they were glorious racists. I mean, I heard it all in that.
Oh, I don't mean like.
But no, like me.
I mean just I mean like nasty. Think like Matt Millen. Okay.
I can't. Nothing comes to mind immediately on that, other than we had a tackle at Long Beach State that was a bit of a nasty guy. I think he actually did some time. That's the only.
You mean like one of these guys that would, after the whistle blew, would block you into the Gatorade table?
Yeah, he was all about bending the rules to their stretching them as far as he could go, and he just had that kind of disposition. But I can't really think of a guy that was like, oh man, that dude was really, really nasty. And
isn't my co-host nice? He doesn't even want to call anybody out.
No, I don't really have that guy. People like
fair enough.
The University of Miami. You certainly not. That's really not even how we got things
listen,
done.
I think this was for the audience that listens. This was a really good show because I'll be honest. I know you a long time. Parts of this I knew, but a lot of this got filled in for me.
Yeah, well.
And you're a very interesting guy. I knew some of it, but I never realized how many air miles you had by the time you're 18.
Listen, I've been all over the place. That's why I'm the great adapter.
You are a very adaptable guy. I have to say that. And I really do, not next week or whatever, but in the summer we'll certainly have a week where we look at what happened in the NFL and college football and go, I want to do a second half to this because I have some stuff I want to follow up, and it's probably another hour, and I think it'd be interesting for the audience if that's okay with you.
Certainly, I don't mind.
And I thank you for telling us a lot about your personal life because that's not everybody likes to do that.
No, I understand, and so I appreciate you doing this because some of this stuff, maybe some of the stories people have heard before. But there's some things here I probably told today that I really haven't put out like publicly. Maybe I've just told.
Yeah, no, you're an interesting guy, and like I said, Chad does a lot of good coaching. You can find all his stuff, Gridiron Studs, every platform. Even if you like to tweet, he'll tweet with you. He'll argue football with you. He'll do whatever you want. You can find
so long as you don't stop. If you can make a coherent argument, I'll entertain you for a while. But,
yes.
Yeah.
So listen, everybody, we appreciate anybody who listened today. Thank you very much. Please like the show if you want to hear more of this. And, we'll be back to analyzing football again soon, but we thought it'd be interesting to share a little of the story here today. So thank you for joining us today. And that's it. Signing off today on the GridironStuds Show. Thanks for joining us.
All right. Thanks for listening.